Norway, a fascinating land in the extreme north of Europe, and magic and fairy tales are very much alive. Crystal clear lakes and rivers, snow-covered mountains, idyllic fishing villages, and endless beaches that are only accessible by boat. Landscapes with remote settlements, and above all, the North Cape. Although the Norwegian metropolis of Oslo is a modern city, it continues to be inspired by the lively spirit of its past traders, fighting men and seafarers. Oslo is more like a European town than a large capital city, and the Domkirke is an impressive sight. Karl Johan's Gate is a splendid avenue. It extends from the main station to the royal castle. It has all the atmosphere of a large city. The Parliament building is also situated here, a mighty yellow tiled and red granite building. The National Theatre is also located in Karl Johan's Gate and is close to the castle. Outside are statues of Norwegian dramatists Ibsen and Bjørnson. Opposite is Oslo's massive university. Its Great Hall was once the setting of the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony. The royal castle that is situated at the end of the avenue is the official residence of the Norwegian royal family. King Karl Johan had the castle built, although he never actually resided in it. The royal guard in front of the castle is an impressive sight. The difficult times when this was a Danish then a Swedish colony are long gone. In the 1920s, the sculptor Adolf Gustav Vigeland was given the use of this building. He exhibited 200 stone figures here. In the center of the sculptor's park is an elevated terrace that contains a group of figures. In the center is the Pillar of Life. Vigeland died in 1943 before his park was completed. Oslo is also the winter capital of Scandinavia, especially so since the Olympic Winter Games of 1952, the first to be held after the Second World War. The ski jump at the Holmenkollen is one of the most famous events and takes place directly in front of the city gates. Gamle Akerkirke is the city's oldest church. This medieval building is located on a hill in the northern port of Oslo. Over the centuries, it has often been plundered. However, it's managed to survive right up to the present day. The city's main landmark is its monumental twin-towered City Hall. Combination of national romantic, classical, and pure functionality, a place of contrast. Completely lacking in taste, or a superb achievement of the age in which we live, the architecture of this building has stirred much controversy. Oslo is a harbour town. It's a city on the sea but lies well sheltered at the end of a fjord. In the 9th century, it was much appreciated by the Vikings who travelled throughout the known world, plundering much of it. King Håkon V transformed an old fortress on the Akernes Peninsula into his own personal residence. In 1300, he moved here from Trondheim. When in 1624 a devastating fire destroyed it, Christian of Denmark had the city rebuilt and named it Christiania. The fortress was transformed into a Renaissance castle. West of the harbour basin is Bryggen, a city quarter that was created on the site of a former shipyard and which features some unusual architecture. And when the sun shines here, the atmosphere is reminiscent of warmer climes. The best way to get an interesting overview over the catchments area of Oslo is a boat trip through the fjord, past many boats of all sizes, and boat houses and chapels. The Oslo fjord is about 130 kilometers long. It extends from the shores of the North Sea to Oslo. The harbour is the starting point for the motor launches that travel to the museum island of Bygdøy. Fridtjof Nansen ordered the construction of the Fram specially for his expeditions to the North Pole. The Norsk Sjøfartsmuseum features the long history of Norwegian navigation. In the Kon-Tiki Museum, the Filigree Balsa riverboat is on display, in which Thor Heyerdahl sailed across the Pacific from Peru to Polynesia. The Viking Ship Museum is Norway's most visited museum. And the Norsk Folksmuseet Museum is the largest of Oslo's museums. This open-air museum covers 14 hectares and contains 170 buildings from the length and breadth of Norway. It's the country's largest collection. Several dance groups in traditional costume provide entertainment in the museum. They show that the Norwegians know how to celebrate. Our fascinating journey on the famous Bergensbanen takes us from Oslo to Bergen. The many suburbs reach far into the hinterland, as the Oslo Fjord Valley was not large enough to absorb the growing population. At first, the plan was to build a railroad between the two most important trading towns in Norway. The construction of the railroad posed a major challenge for the engineers of that time, and its construction took many years. The first section of today's Bergensbanen was completed in 1883. It extended from Bergen to Voss. After the first section was completed, the ambitious engineers had more decisions to make. For the next section, there were several possibilities, but it was decided to extend the line through Rondalen, Myrdal and Finse. The Norwegian Parliament only gave the go-ahead for the construction of the railroad in 1894, as the project was not without risk. But they also wanted to take political advantage of this brave new venture. At that time, the construction of the Bergensbanen was the most daring railway project in the whole of Europe. First, almost the entire infrastructure of railway construction had to be built. Roads for both workers and materials didn't exist in Norway's remote areas. This made the construction of the railway even more difficult. On its journey to Bergen, the train reaches the highest plateau in Europe, the 8,000 square kilometer Hardangervidda. And even today, there are glaciers in this region, such as the Hardangerjökull that originated some 3,000 years ago. At the next station, railway enthusiasts can experience another fascinating route. Because in Myrdal, the spectacular Flambahn begins. Now the train is travelling downhill. After more than 6.5 hours, we have arrived at our final destination, the ancient Hanseatic city of Bergen. The history of this ancient and charming harbour town, Norway's secret capital city, began in the 11th century, during the rule of Bishop Olav Kyrre. Despite several catastrophes, the centre shines out in all of its historic splendour. Bergen's noble cathedral, the Domkirke, has suffered many devastating fires, so it's undergone several building programs, and today nothing remains of the original building. Bergen's main tourist attraction is the Bryggen district that originated in the middle of the 14th century when it was heavily influenced by the North German Hanseatic Office. German traders were attracted by the prosperous city and so had a permanent administrative headquarters built here. Business flourished, and in subsequent years an increasing number of Hanseatic merchants moved to the city. Almost 1,000 Germans settled in Bergen. The decline of Hansa began at the beginning of the 17th century. Its success was being overtaken by various other countries. Norwegian merchants eventually bought the city's German warehouses. The golden age of the Hanseatic traders was then relegated to the history books. Located close to Bergen's fish and vegetable market is the Korskirken. After it was devastated by fire in 1702, it was rebuilt according to the design of the Danish architect Johan Conrad Ernst. Today, the Korskirken is dominated by Renaissance design. Throughout the centuries, numerous Scandinavian artists have adorned the church with their work. The city not only boasts a fascinating history, but also a number of music festivals. And the world-famous composer Edvard Grieg originated from Bergen. Situated at the Øvregata, the Church of the Holy Virgin Mary, the Mariakirken, is the city's oldest religious building. It was once of great importance to the city's German population. In 1408, the building was purchased by various Hanseatic traders. Over several years, they gradually improved its appearance. Indeed, there could be no finer surroundings for Grieg's musical works than the tangled lanes and idyllic squares of his native city. The calm and amicable atmosphere in Bergen's old district still possesses a magical atmosphere and a unique allure. Although the harbour was once responsible for the city's prosperity, during the Industrial Revolution, it proved to be too small and impractical. Both the harbour and the city lost their importance. Times were changing fast. However, today Bergen is an extremely popular tourist destination. Bergen's fishermen still carry out the centuries-old tradition of their ancestors. And the inhabitants of Norway's secret capital city continue to care for and respect their historic cultural inheritance right up to the present day. Norway is also known as a land of fjords, one of the most impressive of which is the Fjord, a very popular tourist destination. It is long and narrow and is situated between steep mountain slopes. Again and again, white foaming water plunges down the rocks, a fascinating natural spectacle. Each summer, more than 100 cruise ships pass through this fascinating fjord and travel right to the end of it, to the uninhabited Geiranger. As large boats are unable to anchor here, small ferry boats are available. From here, the tour continues across the mountains. A steep and narrow mountain road winds up from the valley. The cruise ships are left far below. Rain and fog make the journey on this narrow road a real adventure. We continue to travel up into a world of trolls and fairies. In 1900, during the World Exhibition in Paris, the 24-kilometre-long Geirangerwegen was declared to be a masterpiece of road design. We travel past waterfalls, lakes, and tiny settlements, up as well as down. At the bottom, there's a fjord and also a ferry service. Next, we climb another steep and winding road. It's an interesting journey that is taking us back to the coast. Most of these small canyons have a story to tell, and our driver often stops to explain them to us. Then suddenly, the rain turns to snow, and this is during summer. Finally, Norddal, the highest point. Everyone wants to touch the snow and take photos. A spectacular mountain road winds along 11 bends and into a valley, the Trollstigen. The valley winds down into the Istedal. The white landscape is replaced by green vegetation, and then houses gradually appear. The wild mountain world has been left behind us. Again, we have arrived at sea level and must cross the fjord by ferry boat. Trondheim is Norway's historic capital, a city in which Norway's kings have been crowned and also a bishop's seat, the pulsating heart of Norway. Here one can sense the proximity of the polar circle, and the sun sets only for a short time beneath the horizon. In summer, it never gets completely dark here. More than 1,000 years ago, the Viking chief Olav, who was also responsible for the introduction of Christianity to this region, founded the country's first capital city of Nidaros. Its strategic location made it ideal as a trading centre. Indeed, this has been so right up to the present day. After the city centre was destroyed by a devastating fire, it was rebuilt. At that time, the mouth of the river Nidelva, with its colourful warehouses on posts, was given a new drawbridge that leads into the old town. Various administrative buildings indicate the city's prosperity. The Nidaros Domkirke is the most splendid Gothic cathedral in northern Europe. It was built on the bones of Holy Olav. For several centuries, it's been a place of pilgrimage. Since the Middle Ages, the Norwegian kings were crowned and also entombed here. But since 1906, the monarchy has opted out of a formal crowning ceremony. The adjoining palace of the Archbishop is like a castle. No wonder. It was once the centre of ecclesiastical power. Today, Trondheim is a blossoming city. Plague, fire, and the problems caused by German traders in Bergen are no more. The Reformation also caused problems here. Pilgrims stayed away, and with them, their money. And the Catholic Archbishop fled. However, the city managed to survive. Large harbour complexes were built, and the railway line to Oslo, with steamships that travelled as far as Hammerfest. A city with a colourful history and inescapable charm. Again, we must travel by small boat, this time to Nusfjord. And again, the rain and wind turn the journey into a Nordic adventure. We travel past artificial fish basins. Salmon are bred here. They're extremely popular, but in short supply. Then it appears at the end of the fjord. The Svartesen Glacier, known as the Black Ice. It's the second largest glacier in Norway and derived its name from its dirty appearance. In recent decades, the glacier has gradually been melting and is now quite dangerous due to its uneven and hazardous surface. Sheep graze peacefully on the pebble fields that have been deposited by the glacier. And there's a remote farmhouse close to a small jetty. A final view across this amazing reminder of the last ice age. Then we travel by bus along the banks of the fjords, the numerous waterways that stretch deep into the hinterland. These deep blue and calm waters originated from flooded glacier valleys. They're often surrounded by rugged yet beautiful mountain landscapes. Again and again captivating, isolated bays come into view. A good place for a swim, if it was warmer. Suddenly the sun appears between dark clouds, and the water on the rock walls gleams in the sun. We pass Saltstraumen, where huge masses of water from the sea and the fjords appear to battle against each other. A land full of contrasts, enchanting and silent, powerful and wild. The Islands of the Gods. For the legendary Vikings, the Lofoten, situated in the extreme north of Europe, have always been a special place. Our journey in the Lofoten begins with the arrival of the Stamsund. We're stopping here for only a few minutes. With 1,400 inhabitants, Stamsund is the main fishing village of this group of islands. Although the surrounding fishing grounds contain an abundance of fish, the industry that once flourished here is not as prosperous as it once was. Many of the local people have found work in the fish processing industry in Stamsund. Alas, the Lofoten fishing industry exists no more. As the cod became overfished, new sources of income had to be found. Now, for much of the population, tourism provides a lucrative alternative to the traditional fishing industry of bygone times. The picturesque beauty of this group of islands, located just off the Norwegian coast, has lost nothing of its age-old fascination and colourful sense of history. The small village of Nusfjord is located in front of a captivating backdrop of mountains. Due to its unique location, it looks more like a high mountain village than a fishing settlement. The village is both an historical as well as a cultural treasure. Almost all of its buildings date back to the 19th century. And at that time, its entire population worked in the fishing industry. This village was at its most prosperous in the 19th century. Nusfjord had a post office, a cafe, and even a prison. And since 1907 has had its own power station. Today, it is more like a living museum, and an increasing number of fishing huts, known as råbur, are gradually being abandoned. Stockfish and cod are still, in spite of decreasing numbers, the most important and most famous export of the Lofoten. Despite their remote location, the Lofoten have always attracted settlers. The first were not the Vikings, but an ancient people who arrived on these islands 7,000 years ago. Our next stop is the village of Sund, with its pleasant harbour that's well protected by rocks. As with each settlement of the Lofoten, the former wealth of Sund, that is evident in its colourfully decorated buildings, was based on the abundance of fish that once existed in the waters close to the village. The fishermen here still go out daily. Those who live in the heart of this natural landscape are fortunate indeed. There are few other groups of islands in the north of Europe that enjoy such a beautiful setting. Due to rough seas, the west coast was once uninhabited. However, people gradually began to settle in a number of sheltered bays. At the end of the Lofot Highway, at the southern point of Moskensoy Island, is the picturesque village of Ah. The red of the houses adds interesting contrast to the surroundings. They're mainly dominated by grey rock. This place has also become well known due to its unusual name. The inhabitants of Ah are proud of the fact that their village has the shortest name in the world. The Fishing Village Museum consists of 23 buildings that date back to the 19th century. Here, visitors can learn of the fishermen of bygone times. The remarkable mountain scenery of this region is one of the Lofoten's most beautiful landscapes. The Lofotre Viking Museum in Borg is one of the most famous and most visited tourist attractions of the Lofoten. 20 years ago, a farmer discovered some broken pieces of pottery here. Little by little, archaeologists excavate the remains of the largest Viking house that has ever been discovered. In the Viking Museum, visitors can even sample the life of the Vikings. For this, there's an authentic dragon boat in the Borgpollen estuary. This region was inhabited by the Vikings for several years. In recent times, archaeologists have found the remains of numerous dwellings here. The Vikings, those strongly built, fierce Norsemen, men who settled in the bays of Norway. They raided the coasts of Europe to as far as the Mediterranean. The discovery in Borg is unique. It is the only dwelling of a Viking chief that's ever been found. The root, the mountains and the sea combine as one and form a wonderful harmonic unity that's extremely inspiring. That's why so many artists come to capture the magnificent landscape of the Lofoten. The journey to Henningsvær is a real experience, as most of the road has been blasted into the rock wall, and it also boasts two splendid bridges. Many refer to it as the Venice of the North. A slight exaggeration, but the beauty of this village is certainly not in dispute. The final destination of our journey in the Lofoten leads to the capital of this remote archipelago. It's difficult to leave this wonderful scenery. The origins of Svolvær's date back to the Middle Ages. Fishing played an important role in the life of what was then a village. The largest village of this group of islands has now adapted itself to the tourist industry, and it's also a centre of transport. In the 19th century, Svolvær was an important North Sea ferryboat harbour. Little has changed, just that the Hurtigruten ferryboats have become bigger and dock here several times a day. The journey on one of the Hurtigruten ferryboats, the travel between Bergen and Kirkenes beyond the North Cape, is one of the most beautiful sea journeys in the world. There's no hustle and bustle in the harbour, and the entire city is tranquil and relaxed. The arrival of huge mail boats here is part of everyday life. As are the large ships in the small harbour. The huge ships slowly move out of the sheltered harbour. One of the most beautiful sections of the Hurtigrute travels through a small passage between the islands. We travel past small houses situated on the cliffs, and the traditional wooden racks where in both autumn and winter the local codfish is dried. The ship's lobby is decorated with pictures of kings and queens. It's all very regal. The 8 decks of the new ship are easily accessed by way of a glass elevator. Modern comforts have also reached the traditional mailboats. While the colourful coast slowly passes by, a tasty dinner is served. This is the life. The view of the coast and its snow-peaked mountains and forested slopes is quite outstanding. Today, modern technology has been introduced to the Hurtigrute fleet that was first established a century ago. The boat glides almost silently through the water, past an enchanting landscape. The Hurtigrute mailboats have helped to improve the living conditions of those living on the coast, who would otherwise be cut off from the outside world. The Polar Circle baptism ceremony takes place, a traditional event with a lot of added humour. The god of the sea pours iced water onto various heads, and then everyone is given something to drink, a certificate, and a photograph of the ceremony. Then follows a dance in the cool evening breeze. The midnight sun sinks just a little beneath the horizon. What an incredible sight. Our mailboat reaches the next harbour on schedule. Our journey into the north will last for several days on the first street of the realm, as the Hurtigrute was known in earlier times. Harstad is the capital of the Vesterålen Island, the northern continuation of the Lofoten Islands. A relatively new town with 22,000 inhabitants. The population began to increase in the herring years, when in Vagafjord it was possible to catch herrings with a pitchfork. When the fishing industry fell into decline, the shipbuilding and textile industries provided employment, and the workers were quite well off. Well-preserved warehouses indicate successful past trade, and numerous ferryboats travel from here to various islands. All is peaceful. Today, Harstad is the main centre of Norway's oil and gas industries. Its administrative buildings are located here. But we're not yet in the extreme north. The journey continues. Tromsø, the capital of the Nordkalotte, is also known as the gateway to the Ice Sea, and also the gateway to the Arctic, due to its geographical location in the extreme north of Norway. Part of the last big town before the North Pole is situated on the mainland, and the remainder on some islands just off the coast. The Ice Sea Cathedral, with its unique architecture and the largest glass painting in Europe, has, since its consecration in 1965, become one of Tromsø's most popular attractions. It was built of glass and concrete and symbolizes the elements of the local landscape: light, ice, and constant change. The harbour is the main source of income in Tromsø. Many industrial companies have come here. The export of fish, navigation, and various service industries all provide a good income here. No other harbour in the world has seen the start of as many polar expeditions as this one. The Polar Museum is an old and protected wooden building. Various images depict past life in this vast wilderness. Old tools and weaponry are exhibited, and whale hunting and the killing of seals is also featured. Written records and the objects taken to numerous expeditions to the North Pole awaken the spirit of adventure. There's a special exhibition that features Roald Amundsen and the Northwest Passage. Tromsø is a city of the superlative. It covers the largest man-made surface north of the polar circle. It boasts the northernmost university and brewery. It is often referred to as the Paris of the North, as almost anything can be bought here, and the shops are extremely tempting. However, the proximity of the Arctic is always obvious. The older churches of the mainly Protestant population have been adapted to the region's climate. The Italian general Nobile surveys the market square. He once travelled to the North Pole on his ship the Italia, but in a disaster at sea had to be rescued. The city has many young people, so the number of bars and nightclubs here is far larger than anywhere else in Norway. Hammerfest, the northernmost harbour in Norway, is also the northernmost town in the world. There is no ice in winter, and in summer, the midnight sun. In the City Hall, one can join a special organisation, the Royal Ice Bear Club. The church is similar to the Ice Sea Cathedral in Tromsø. In summer, organ concerts are performed here each day. In 1789, Hammerfest was given the freedom of the city. In 1809, it was destroyed by the English Navy. And in 1890, it was devastated by fire. And in 1945, the German army also wrought havoc here. But the city was rebuilt, and although the houses are somewhat modest, their inhabitants live a contented life in this remote land. Most of the employment here is provided by the Findus Frozen Food Company. It has 1,000 employees. However, this could change as the large gas fields in the Barents Sea expand. A Nordic boomtown could develop here. "71 degrees, 10 minutes, 21 seconds. The North Cape is truly magical. It is the destination of each and every journey north. The plateau towers 300 meters above the polar sea. However, it's still 2,100 kilometers from the North Pole. Most of the time, the wind blows here, and it's foggy. The modern North Cape Hall, however, is comfortable and warm. Here, visitors can learn how the treacherous North Cape was discovered. A unique post office sells special stamps. On our return to civilization, we meet a Sami family with their tent and reindeer. They live in the extreme north, in the land of the Sami. Here on the northern edge of Europe, this independent people has found their final permanent home. They live here with their reindeer. Kirkenes is not only the last Norwegian town before the Russian border, but also the point of return for the Hurtigrute ships. From here, they returned to Bergen. Until 1828, the small town was situated in the Norwegian-Danish-Russian district. But thanks to the opening of Russia, Kirkenes is now again Norway's gateway to the east. The ore mines are closed, but the harbour is still open. The town's houses and churches were rebuilt after 1944 in typical North Norwegian post-war style. "50 years of living behind the Iron Curtain could not have been easy for the people of this region, and it was perhaps this that accounts for their reserved nature." In the 20th century, Kirkenes had to endure no less than 4 wars. Today, all is tranquil once again. In front of the city gates, on the banks of the Jakob River, we set off on our final adventure, the Barent Safari. We travel 11 kilometers by boat to the Russian border. This would once have been impossible, but today the Norwegians and the Russians live in peace. The journey ends at a small jetty on the Russian border. In winter, the temperature here is often minus 40 degrees Celsius, and in summer, 25 degrees. Just a few more steps to the border. Our guide explains what happened here during the Cold War, when snipers ensured that no one went anywhere near the border. Next we arrive at a small hut, where a special extreme north barbecue has been prepared. Hot tea and fish cooked on charcoal. The wonderful river landscape at the northern edge of the world is gloriously tranquil. A natural paradise in the remote and unspoiled tundra plateau. Looking at the landscape, it's easy to understand why the descendants of the Vikings are so proud of their fascinating home in the extreme north. Norway, a country bursting with breathtaking and untamed beauty.